All right, so today we're diving into a topic that might make some folks a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. A
Fetishism.
little taboo.
Yeah, but don't worry, we're not, endorsing anything here. It's
Right.
really about understanding it.
Absolutely.
We've got this academic paper all about Freud's theories on it,
Oh, for
and we're going to see what we can learn.
always an interesting place to start.
Yeah, he's kind of notorious for tying like these strange behaviors back to like these basic human anxieties.
It's like he's saying, look, there's a method to the madness.
Yeah.
It's not just random
Right.
quirks.
Yeah. So speaking of roots, I guess got to start with one of Freud's most famous and maybe infamous concepts, castration anxiety.
Yes, and it's important to clarify. This isn't about like literally losing your penis.
Right.
It's symbolic,
Symbolic fear, yeah.
It's about the fear of losing power,
Okay.
especially masculine power.
Mm-hmm.
And he tied this back to the Oedipus complex.
Yeah. Okay, so for those not familiar, Oedipus complex, little boy desires, mom sees dad as a rival.
Right.
How does castration anxiety fit into all this?
So Freud believed that as a child goes through these stages, right, they start to notice something.
Mm-hmm.
Mom doesn't have what dad has, anatomically speaking.
Right.
And this can be really unsettling for a young boy.
It's like a challenge to how they understand the world.
Exactly. It challenges their whole understanding of how things work.
So it's not just the competition with dad, but also this realization of difference, of like lack, as Freud called it,
Yeah.
that causes anxiety.
Absolutely. And you have to remember, we're talking about little kids here.
Right.
Their minds aren't equipped to deal with this stuff in a mature way.
Right. So they need ways to cope.
Exactly. And that's where these defense mechanisms come in.
Okay.
And Freud saw fetishism as one way to deal with this castration anxiety.
So the fetish becomes a way to manage this unsettling realization about their mother.
You could say that it's not a conscious choice or anything.
Right.
It's the mind trying to protect itself.
Okay.
Think of it as a kind of a splitting of perception.
Splitting. Okay.
So on one hand, the child acknowledges the lack, but on the other,
Yeah.
they create this symbolic substitute to maintain this sense of wholeness.
Okay, so break that down for me a little bit more.
Sure.
What's being split?
So the child sees the reality that mom doesn't have a penis,
Right.
but that reality is super anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
So the fetish, whatever that object is,
Right.
becomes this stand-in for that missing penis.
Okay.
It allows the child to focus on something else, something less threatening.
So the fetish object isn't really about the object itself,
No.
but about what it represents.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's what we call symbolic substitution.
Got it.
It's a mental detour around that anxiety.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense than why fetishes can be so diverse.
Right.
Shoes, stockings, fabrics, like it seems so random.
It's not about the thing itself,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
It's about what it symbolizes.
Right. But why the focus on these like seemingly random fragments?
Well, think back to that splitting idea.
Yeah.
The mind might focus on a part rather than the whole person as a way of managing that anxiety.
So it's easier to focus on a small detail
Yes.
than the whole reality.
Exactly.
This makes me think about like if we do this in other areas of life too,
Interesting.
like maybe relationships
oh.
where we fixate on certain aspects of a person
Uh-huh.
to avoid other maybe less comfortable truths.
You're really hitting on something insightful there.
Yeah.
Freud saw this kind of fixation as potentially problematic.
Oh.
He thought it could hinder personal growth and even impact relationships.
So like this clinging to a specific object or idea for comfort, could that show up outside of just like sexual stuff?
It could, yeah.
Like what?
Think about people who are like overly attached to routines.
Yeah.
Or even to specific people, to the point where it causes problems.
Right.
Could we see that as a form of fixation?
Makes you realize we all have ways of coping with anxiety,
We do.
even if they're not as obvious as a fetish.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that Freud's ideas,
Yeah.
they've been really groundbreaking,
Yeah.
but also very controversial.
Well, yeah, especially like with castration anxiety. It's
Right.
very male-centric.
It is.
Like, what about female fetishism?
Exactly. It raises a lot of questions.
Right. It's a reminder that even groundbreaking theories need to evolve.
Absolutely.
But even if we don't take Freud literally, he still gives us a framework for thinking about things like symbolism and the unconscious.
He does.
So it's not about whether every little detail is scientifically accurate,
Right.
but the bigger questions that he raises
Absolutely.
about how our minds work, especially when it comes to stuff we're not even aware of.
The unconscious is a powerful thing.
Yeah. This has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Good.
So what I'm hearing is that even seemingly irrational behaviors might actually have a purpose,
Yeah.
even if we don't consciously know it.
It's like what appears irrational on the surface might actually be a way of managing these deeper anxieties or needs.
So what we think is weird could be someone just trying to feel safe and stable.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty powerful way to look at it.
It is. It opens up a whole new way of understanding people,
Yeah.
both ourselves and others.
This is making me rethink some things.
Oh, I bet.
But before we get too far down that road,
Yeah.
I think we should look at some other examples of these defense mechanisms at play.
I agree. Let's explore how this idea of symbolic substitution and these unconscious motivations show up in other parts of life.
All right, let's do it.
Freud's theories, even if not everyone agrees with them, give us like a really valuable tool for understanding people.
Totally. It's like he's saying, hey, there's a reason for all these things.
Right.
These like seemingly strange things people do. And if we accept that idea that the mind uses these defenses, what other like irrational behaviors
Oh, that's a good question.
might we be misinterpreting?
Well, what about like phobias?
Oh, okay.
On the surface, a fear of spiders or heights might seem totally illogical.
Right.
But what if like the fetish,
Yeah.
those fears are symbolic?
So you're saying my friend who freaks out over a tiny spider isn't actually scared of the spider,
Maybe not.
but something deeper.
It could be that the object of the phobia is actually a screen
A screen.
for a much more complex,
Okay.
maybe even unconscious fear.
So that spider represents something totally different.
Exactly.
Okay, my mind is bending a little bit here.
I know, it's deep stuff.
So how do we even start to figure out those hidden meanings? Is it like a spider equals this specific fear?
No, it's rarely that simple.
Okay.
It's more about understanding the individual,
Right.
their personal history, and what might be triggering those deeper anxieties.
So you have to know the person.
Yeah, but the key is to recognize that there might be a deeper layer that we're not seeing.
Okay, this is making me think about those people who are like super organized.
Right.
Almost to an extreme.
I know what you mean.
Like, could that be about managing anxiety about chaos rather than a genuine love of tidiness?
It's certainly possible.
Right.
Remember, we're not trying to diagnose anyone here.
Of course.
We're just exploring different ways of looking at behavior.
Yeah.
What we might think is weird
Right.
could actually be someone's way of creating order and stability.
That's a good point. It also makes you wonder, are these defense mechanisms always bad?
That's a great question.
Would they be helpful?
Yeah, sometimes.
Healthy ways to cope.
Even Freud acknowledged that.
Oh, he did?
He said that these urges could be channeled productively
Okay.
through what he called sublimation.
So it's like taking that raw energy, that anxiety or whatever, and turning it into something else.
Transforming it, exactly.
Okay, so like what? Like art.
Yeah, art could be a great example.
Okay.
Creating art could be a way of managing inner conflicts.
Yeah.
Or expressing emotions that are hard to put into words.
What about like athletic competition?
Oh, yeah.
That intense drive to like push yourself physically to win.
That could definitely be a form of sublimation.
Channeling those primal urges into something acceptable.
Exactly.
Okay, so these defenses, even when they seem strange or dysfunctional, can actually be essential.
They can.
For our well-being.
It all depends on how they're used.
Okay, so far we've talked about how Freud saw fetishism as one type of defense mechanism stemming from castration anxiety. And we've also touched on how this idea of symbolic substitution and unconscious motivations could play a role in things like phobias and obsessions.
Absolutely.
And we talked about how those behaviors, even when we see them negatively, can actually have a positive side.
They can.
But where do we go from here?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, like how do we actually use this knowledge to improve our lives and relationships?
I think the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing these patterns in ourselves and in others allows us to interact with more empathy and understanding.
So instead of getting frustrated with someone for their seemingly irrational behavior, we pause and consider what deeper anxieties or needs might be driving it.
Exactly. It's about shifting from judgment to curiosity.
Okay.
Instead of asking what's wrong with them, we ask what happened to them. Or what can I learn from this?
It makes you realize how often we probably misinterpret people's actions.
We do.
Like taking things personally when it's not about us at all.
It's rarely about us.
And this goes back to empathy.
It does.
The more we understand these mechanisms, the less we take things personally and the more compassionately we can respond.
Exactly.
It's like Freud gave us this decoder ring.
A decoder ring. I like that.
For human behavior.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to use it wisely.
It is a powerful tool.
So what are some practical ways we can actually apply this to our everyday lives?
Well, once we start to recognize these patterns in ourselves and others, we can start to address them more constructively. Instead of letting those unconscious anxieties control us, we can develop healthier coping mechanisms.
So it's not about eliminating these defenses, but becoming more aware of them.
Yes.
And finding better ways to manage those anxieties. So it's not about getting rid of these defenses.
Oh, no.
But evolving how we respond to them.
Exactly.
Can you give us an example of what that would look like?
Sure. Imagine you have a friend.
Yeah.
Who constantly seeks validation from others.
Oh, yeah, we all know that person.
Right.
Always fishing for compliments.
Right. And that could be their way of coping with a deep fear of rejection.
Okay, so how do we help them?
Well,
or even ourselves if we recognize this pattern?
Yeah, instead of just giving them that reassurance, which might actually make the insecurity worse.
Yeah.
You can encourage them to explore the root of those anxieties.
So suggesting therapy or journaling?
Exactly. Help them build that self-worth from within.
Instead of needing it from outside?
Yes, exactly.
This reminds me of how we project our own anxieties onto others.
Oh, all the time?
Maybe someone's clingy behavior isn't about us.
Right.
But about their own struggles.
Exactly. And this all goes back to empathy.
It does.
The more we understand these mechanisms, the less we take things personally.
Right.
And the more compassionately we respond.
It's like Freud gave us this tool.
The tool.
For understanding people.
He did.
But we have to use it carefully.
We do. It's powerful stuff.
It is. It's also interesting how these insights apply to so many areas.
Oh, yeah.
What about conflict resolution?
Well, that's a good one.
If we understand what's driving someone's actions, we can find solutions that actually address those needs.
Absolutely.
This is starting to feel kind of empowering.
Good.
Instead of feeling helpless when people act in ways we don't understand, we can actually understand it.
You got it.
And potentially help.
And that's the goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
To move from confusion and judgment to understanding and compassion.
This deep dive has given me a whole new perspective.
I'm glad to hear that.
A new way to see the world.
And hopefully that new lens allows you to see not just the complexity, but also the beauty of human experience.
Yeah.
Even in our quirks and flaws.
Right.
There's a story there.
There is.
Waiting to be understood.
So to our listeners.
Yes.
Next time you encounter someone acting in a way that confuses you or frustrates you.
Yeah.
Remember Freud and his defense mechanisms?
It might help.
Maybe their irrational behavior is really just an attempt to protect themselves.
Could be.
From some deeper pain.
Exactly.
And by understanding that,
yeah,
we can connect with them on a deeper level.
And who knows? Maybe exploring those deeper motivations will help you uncover some hidden depths in yourself as well.
Oh.
After all, as Freud reminds us, we all have our secrets.
Well, on that note of intrigue, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Until next time, keep exploring, questioning, and diving deeper into this fascinating world of the human mind.
I'll see you then.